I'm very low energy tonight. I apologize. Thank you, everyone, for coming by. How's everyone doing? Welcome to the December edition of State of the Game for Tough Love Arena. Playable right now at toughlovearena.com. Let's get started. What did we accomplish in the month of November? Well, we set out to do these things, and we got to a little over half. Given the way November played out, I'm very pleased with what we got accomplished with my personal productivity. But I was disappointed that we didn't get to ranked yet. Not bad. We mostly stayed on target. Here are some highlights of the things that we shipped in November. Lots of quality of life, like these little cancel options to cover weird edge cases for the very high-level players that play carbs and spices. Improvements on some of the bugs, on some of the crashes. A favorite character added to accounts. A really old feature request that I suddenly thought of a clever way to implement. Trying to do a mix of things that were planned and some, nice quality of life. Things to make the experience a little bit better. So we had the QR4 tournament. Super pleased with the turnout. And as always, I'm personally very proud to see every character represented in the top 8. And even random. That's super cool. That gives me a lot of confidence. Overall, a really fun event. And we had some really hype matches. And the Garlic Ditto in Grands was so sick. We uploaded the entire tournament VOD to YouTube, so I encourage you to check it out. Thank you to everyone who played. Thank you to my co-commentators. Thank you to the TOs. Good show, everyone. We all pat ourselves on the back. TLA Anime NYC. So this was very last minute, very spur of the moment. Otherwise, I would have definitely advertised this and let people know. Amy and I both live in New York City, and we went to the anime convention that was about halfway through the month. Yeah, glad we tested negative to the Omicron. And I noticed, an FGC area. We were there on Saturday, so I talked to the organizers. They were super excited about Tough Love Arena. We made a quick last-minute arrangement, and I came back on Sunday. They gave me 2 monitors and some controllers, and we ran 2 setups. And this was the inspiration for realizing that I should really be ready with some controllers of my own. This is a stick that we were looking at. I don't think we'll go for this because it's uncomfortably small. It's not very good. I'm currently leaning towards these pads. Ooh, model for the camera. It's a Genesis controller essentially, but I feel like this is super clear for the game. Let me just plugs in with USB, and then it's super easy to explain that left and right, ABC. Pumped for this because we were using like PS4 pads, and people were confused about can I use the joystick? Do the triggers do anything? It was a great learning experience essentially for that and many other reasons, and it was a lot of fun. We got to meet a lot of people who had never heard of the game, and especially a lot of people who didn't really play fighting games. Definitely a different vibe. We learned a lot, and me and Amy are both really excited about doing more events like this intentionally next year. So I look forward to announcements about that. One of the biggest takeaways I had was that if you are trying to run a Tough Love Arena event at, let's say, your local, and you're having people come up who aren't super familiar with the game, there are like 5 different traps on this screen that you could accidentally click or press to screw everything up. If someone doesn't know what they're doing, one of the first things they press is the heavy button, and it kicks you back to the menu. Or they press enter on the mod icon, will open the file menu, which you can't navigate unless you have a keyboard or mouse plugged in. So this is why I added exhibit mode. It is a reskin of local versus, but it has Tough Love Arena, nice front and center. It disables a bunch of stuff that you would want if you were actually playing with your friends, but you don't really need for this simplified event context. It's forced best of 3 60-second rounds, no mods, no controller config. You have to do that somewhere else. No ancillary buttons on the edge that you can't click because there's no mouse. A lot of people were confused when we added this about a week ago. That is why. Super excited to have this at our next event. It sounds like it'll make things a lot easier. Custom mobile controls. This was one of my big goals for the entire year. We finally got to it. If you're playing on your phone, the little circle represents your thumb. You can set your own touch controls because we got feedback. Some phones are kind of dead in the corner. The touch wouldn't register. Other people wished that they were more in a row or something else. Now you have pretty decent customization options to move things around, to change the sizes, to test it out, and then it saves it locally to your device. I plan to let this be out there in the wild for a month or so, and then I really want to poll people and see if they've come up with alternate configurations that seem more comfortable or seem better, and then I'll totally add those as like presets to this menu. Very excited about this. It's not finished. There's always more polish to do, but at this point I think it is useful. The monthly player survey. We had 87 respondents, which I think is maybe the highest or like tied for highest. People have fun playing our game. This is always a nice graph to see. People really think that it's well suited to beginners, and also would consider, like more often than not, recommending it to experienced fighting game players. And this is really the sweet spot that I want to hit. I am targeting a great experience for beginners and a pretty good experience for enfranchised players. So again, please be honest with your feedback. We will continue to ask this question and continue to check it. If I see either of these going majorly down, that is my personal wake-up call to undo some probably horrible stuff that I did. One other result that I want to highlight is the Noodle graph. The Noodle graph has been up and down and all over for the last couple months. I'm pretty sure this is basically how it looked like 2 months ago. Whereas everyone else is, everyone else looks like the experienced graph here. We'll talk about Noodle more, but I just wanted to point this out. Thank you everyone for your honest feedback. This is good to see. We'll come back to this in just a second. This was the strongest in the other direction. So Garlic is apparently doing great. I haven't read all the character comments yet, but I had read some of the general ones and a few of the Noodle ones. Lots of good feedback, lots of good ideas, some good feature requests and bug reports, that some of which were already in the to-do and some of which were news to me. But also a lot of essentially misinformation. A lot of questions were asking for things that already exist in the game. We got a lot of people asking, for a desktop version, asking if there's like links to information, and me essentially realizing that I'm not presenting the information about the desktop version. I'm not presenting information about like the YouTube channel readily enough. So this was ultimately still good feedback to get. We clearly need to work on our education. Conveyance. Yeah, a lot of these are basically just covered on the FAQ. So I view that as my fault for, how can we surface that easier? Oh my god, Amy, yeah, link to the shirt. One second, I gotta open this. Definitely make sure to check out. God, I should really get this just to wear it to one of the events. This was a really interesting one that I hadn't considered. So a change we made in the last month or so was the fact that when you win, your character does a little pose. And then if you press a direction, after like a second, you can move out of that froze. So if you really want to, you can do the win pose and then you can walk and dab a bunch of times. But it definitely breaks a lot of the like post-KO combos that the game used to have. So I think that there could be a middle ground where we keep the win poses on time over, but not on a normal KO. Or maybe even I could change the implementation that like, if you take your hands off the controller, then you'll go into the win pose. But if you're doing literally anything, you'll keep doing whatever you want. Moral of the story, thank you so much for all the feedback. I really like this ritual of the monthly survey. I hope it's not too much of a pain to fill out, but please let me know if it's starting to become too much of a chore. I don't want there to be a huge barrier to entry. Drink and then present. Health check. Again, QR4 tournament went well. I thought that was a very solid turnout. We had minimal technical difficulties, a really fun top 8, and things went well on comms, and the tournament seemed to run pretty quick. It was just a wonderful night. Anime NYC went well, especially considering how last minute it was, and I'm super excited for all the things I learned, and to take those to when me and Amy finally make it out to like a 3-day event, a gaming or anime convention or PAX East or whatever. I'll be much more prepared this time with both equipment and materials and printouts and all this other stuff. The active player count continues to rise. It was down for the week of Thanksgiving by quite a lot, but it immediately jumped back up to its normal numbers afterwards. So not surprised at all. Amy is returning to TLA work. Amy. I've already seen a little bit of skin design, a little bit of pork drawn. So look forward to some exciting news later this month. So I know that November, from the perspective of a TLA player, was pretty content low outside of the big QR4 event. And so I'm cognizant of that. And I want to give people exciting reasons to boot up the game at least once a week, right? So there's a few more chores I have to take care of, essentially, but then we should have some more interesting stuff coming out soon. The online infrastructure needs to be migrated. Not all of it, but a decent chunk basically needs to be shut down and set up on different servers. We should be able to do this with very minimal or no downtime, but if I do need to disable online for an hour while we do a migration, I'll let people know, and I'll try to do it during off hours. Matchmaking has issues. I've gotten some good bug reports and good conversations in the bug channels trying to debug and understand issues with getting stuck on handshakes, and I have ideas both for quick mitigations and also a few ideas for how to debug and potentially fix it. And the ranked rage quit system is fundamentally broken. I had the bandwidth to take some time and look at my code that I wrote last August when I was doped up on Oxycontin recovering from a surgery, is when I wrote all the ranked code. There were some good ideas in there, and I'm proud that most of it works, but the mechanism I used for detecting rage quits and assigning culpability was extremely error prone. I have a whole new plan. I know how to do this the correct way. It just will take time. I've seen enough complaints, so I'm super excited to add that. Some gameplay check-ins. I'm not about to do anything this month. My plan is no balance changes this month. I'm saving everything for January. But my current suspicion is that meter gain is maybe a little too high, which makes sense because when we added the walking forward meter, there was some inevitable inflation. And I think that the biggest issue I'm having right now is scenarios where the aggressor can spend meter to get an extension or get a situation and very quickly build back a significant portion of it. I really like the walking change. That's not going to change. And I really like the rate, but I might just tone it down a little bit. Again, not drastic, just a little bit. I think those laser targeted adjustments to the carbs and spices of adding the extra cancel option has been an unallied good. Noodle continues to be a challenge. Amy says State of the Game should just have a noodle section. Past, present, noodle, and future. I do believe that we have successfully balanced Noodle, to be fair, if a little underpowered. But I think we have killed the fun. A more substantial redesign may be warranted. So, to recap, no more Ultimate Zoner. It has worked. It has been balanced in the past, but I think it's too much of a scrub killer. My idea for Grounder clearly isn't working. People weren't responding to it. I buffed it to essentially try to push it. People still aren't responding to it. Part of the problem is that it's a move that's very high risk and potentially very high reward, but people don't value that as much on an offensive move. The feeling is I could go for Grounder, or I could just do Whip, which is a million times more safe. I feel like I've spent the last 2 months trying to polish what was maybe a bad idea to begin with. But I have some rough ideas, and by the time we get to January, it might be something completely new. It might be something half the same, half different. My other issue with Noodle that I think is a little bit more important is I think Fist is just bad. Not in a balanced way, in an every way. And I just don't think it works with our engine. It doesn't work with the playstyle of Tough Love Arena, because either it's oppressively strong, like the Far Fist from a month ago. Yeah, people liked that move because it was just really, really good, but then that's incredibly frustrating for people to fight through. Or it's safe, and when it's safe, it's just super boring. I've been thinking about the fact that so many of our other characters' special moves are so gameplay defining and so exciting. And so cool. It's really exciting to get caber tosses. It's really exciting to throw lemons. It's really cool to do SWAT loops. Dash is obviously very fun. Hop kick is maybe a little standard, but it has so many options for the advanced onion player. It really opens up the character and it gives them their defining quality, which is their high damage. What does Fist do? Frenzy to me is a good idea. People love Frenzy. But I think Fist and Grounder are worth reconsidering. The word I kept using for the last 2 months was like, trap character. I'm going to take Noodle away from a zoner and into a trap character. But Grounder's not really a trap move. And in fact, trap moves just don't really make sense in a game without mix-ups. TLA is very light on mix. Certain archetypes just don't translate well to our limited movement options on our very simple engine. And I think zoners translate with very rough edges, and trap characters translate very clunkily. I've gotten some feedback in previous months. We're tired of talking about Noodle. What are you going to do with Noodle? I appreciate your patience. I appreciate people who are along for the ride. Noodle has been very challenging, and I apologize, really heartfelt, to Noodle mains who loved a past version of Noodle, but I hope we can find a Noodle in the future that you still find fun, and that everyone finds more fun to play as and against. Now let us never discuss this again. Let's talk about the future. Some announcements. We are going to have a birthday tournament tentatively on January 14th. That is the second Friday of the month, I believe. It'll be to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of Tough Love Arena being out. There will be skins. We will have more information and a challenge bracket, more details later this month. My to-do, and this is too many items. I know that I won't get all these done, especially because I'm losing time to holidays this month. Things that I hope to do this month is 1, to migrate servers to dedicated TLA accounts. That was the migration stuff I talked about earlier. 2, move assets to a less expensive hosting provider. Working on the matchmaking bugs. Overhauling the rage quit detection system. Improving the online queue experience, which I will leave intentionally vague. Training mode is still on the roadmap. Don't worry about that. But I'm not talking about that. The Steam release has been pushed back to January. Just to be realistic with how nuts it's going to be, we're not going to be able to get the prerequisite work done in time. But I am hoping to at least get to the point where maybe we have the public Steam page and it's, coming out soon. These are my goals. Decent amount of stuff still under the hood. And also, I'm hoping some really big quality of life fixes for people who like to play online a lot. And we're at the Q&A. Giant Paul. Ellington asks, Paul, how do you feel about BlazBlue getting rollback? I am super hype. Thank you for reminding me I need to text my old college friends. Drop Dead Cynical asks, are you updating the Redbubble shop with the new sprites? The current plan is that we will drop the beta label when the sprites are done. The Redbubble right now is very much meant to be a limited time beta offering. And then we will take all of those down, and then we will put up nice looking ones. Nicer looking ones. Waddle says, my question is, Paul, do you believe I can actually top 8 this upcoming major? Waddle, I think you are 100% capable of it. You just gotta believe. Question, how is Rawl doing? I have no idea what you're talking about. Blue IC Dasani says, when is Carb Boss dropping? Hopefully January. I would say Carb Boss and single player content is my next priority after Steam. 3 questions from Shy Ninja. Would you consider adding Armor versus Airborne to Frenzy again? Rice gets to have an armored anti-air that is also a combo starter, extender, and enter. No. I understand it's very frustrating. SWAT is obviously a move designed to rule the sky. And the fact that Frenzy was, in a lot of cases, a better anti-air than SWAT is not a good look. 2. Slap Fist RC. Rice gets some interesting combos up close. Why not give this to Noodle? Make him have more interesting combos as well. That was also intentional. I want Rice to be the much heavier combo character, but doesn't have a DP. So Noodle needs to have either other unique strengths that we're going to explore soon, or have some domain in a range that Rice can't touch, or things that synergize with having a DP or whatever. How far in the future do you think desktop version for Linux will be? I was just thinking about this the other day, CH4RG3, because I essentially had to do that to run it on my laptop. I will make sure it gets on the to-do. I could probably pump that out this month. Any time frame, if any, if self-damaging coming to mods? Honestly, Esid, I just forgot. Please bump that to the top of mod requests, and I will try to take... That would be a great candidate for trying to bang out on dev stream, because that should be really quick. And did the camera freeze again? Amy, please remind me to buy a better camera. Will you add everything to Phase 2 on the to-do before release? That was the original plan, Wilton Laws, but I'm not as committed to it. The Phase 1, 2, and 3 was a really good way for me to high-level time box some things at the very beginning. It has gotten a lot more disorganized since then. But now it's more of, I would be happy to put it into a official release state as soon as we remove all the clear gaps in either content or functionality. How would you feel about further pushback on reject? I sometimes feel like I'm still going to get hit by carbs even after using. I'm totally open to it, Esid. I've gone back and forth on whether I should do that. Reject is definitely I will say, one of the very under-designed parts of the game. I sort of took a first crack on it, and it looked like it worked, and I shipped it. And it has a lot less intentionality and polish than a lot of the other stuff. Celophiles asks, who is Rawl? I have no idea. People keep talking about this Rawl person. I just don't know. Esid says, this is more a question for Amy, but how are roller skates going to be animated for Onion? Amy says, they'll roll. Table Rice asks, 1, what do you think of this game having a version select similar to SF4? If you should think of your thing, what do you think of letting us use it in lobbies? I would love a version select. Unfortunately, it doesn't work with a game as in development in this one. Just core gameplay has changed so much in the last 12 months. Makes porting Noodle a not insubstantial amount of work. I encourage you, if you're interested in this, you can sort of do it yourself by just archiving the mod default file for all the characters. But as people working with mods have noticed, sometimes the efforts to sort of backport old mods, there are gaps, and there's some things that don't translate, and I want to be able to continue to mold the engine and remove stuff that doesn't make sense, or change the rules, like chip kills. I think it's a really cool feature, but for the way that I've architected it, it just doesn't make sense. Besides Noodle, are you going to really change any other character? Nothing planned. Noodle is the only person that I think has a problem, and I think everyone else is in a really stable and interesting place. What do you think of giving Noodle more options to the ability to RC certain tools, such as Slap Fist? I I understand what you're saying, and it is technically an additional option, but I don't think of it as an additional tool. Something like RCing Fist is just more damage. And again, as I discussed before, if Fist RCs, then Noodle starts creeping into the territory of becoming just like better rice. I'm going to start trying to go through these earlier. I might have to cut a few off at the end because I'm running out of throat. Kenny Rose says, I like your scarf. Did you knit it? This is actually Amy's scarf. It has Nyan Cat at the end. Wilton says, how do you test balance changes before you drop them? It really comes down to how well I feel like I understand them. So, for example, a balance change like the recent light cancel thing, I implement it, I manually test all of the scenarios I can think of. Most changes are very limited in scope in terms of the things they can affect, because it's changing a move and maybe a box somewhere. If it is a larger change and I suspect that there might be some, unknown unknowns, then I push it to Canary and I have essentially a small volunteer QA team help me out with it. It's worked pretty far, Wilton, so far. There are definitely downsides, but it's really helped for maintaining velocity. The upside to working on such a small team is that we can ship things really quickly. The downside is that sometimes we ship things too quickly. Wilton says, what would you say is essential for beta end? Amy has their conditions for what they would need to do. I'm pretty sure it's finishing the art and maybe some menu stuff. My conditions would be single-player content and Steam and app release. I originally wanted full mod support to be pre-release, but it's such a large undertaking, I would be okay launching that as post-release content. Trying to sort of put it off because it will just be all I do for like 2 months. Oh, there's a lot to scroll. Easton says, do you have a version of January code saved? I do. I have backups of basically every version of Tough Love Arena since February of 2020, like 10 months before the public beta. And that's essentially how we continue to have April Fools hosted, right? I built a single version. I took all the assets that it required at that time and saved them locally, and that works as its own self-hosted instance. Is there any way that at all that we could play an old version, such as Beta 1? It is possible. I'm a little embarrassed. Maybe that would be a cute New Year's treat. Maybe I could rehost what the game was a year ago, and people could play it and be like, wow, this sucks. Q&A. Paul, can you stick your hand up like you're trying to figure out whether or not something is a butterfly? I have no idea what you're talking about, Astrian. Should meter option be buffed in compensation for the meter gain being nerfed? I don't think so. Again, the meter gain being nerfed is really to bring it back to where it was like a month or two ago. I buffed it because I wanted to buff walking, and I think I buffed the overall meter gain a little too much. So I just want to bring the total meter gain per match back to where it was. Petition for Paul to set up an Amazon wish list. For what? Oh, maybe for a better camera. Fisher Price. I guess this is what Amy is getting me for Christmas. You keep teasing me like this, I'll never stream again. I promise. I'm a fragile boy. No bullying, Paul. I caught up. We did it. It only took like 40 minutes. Oh my gosh. But this has been a very fun State of the Game stream. A very lively chat. A very fun Q&A. And the camera died as soon as I seen transition. What do you think of quitting TLA development and becoming a top Melee streamer in Jigglypuff main? Maybe someday. That's right. I remember to make sure this was... Oh my god, the camera froze again. Oh my god. I can't live like this. I don't get paid enough to do this. Paul, maybe it was a bad idea. Or flawed idea, if we want to be more generous. Thank you, Paul.